The grave of the Prophet ﷺ is well documented. Nobody has been inside the actual chambers of Aisha for at least 11 centuries. And nobody should go inside. There are still keys to get you to some inner chambers, but not the innermost chamber. The actual house of the Prophet ﷺ was not bigger than 10 feet by 10 feet, let's say, a very small room. This was not a large mansion. And yet the modern day grave is at least, 60 feet or so, or something. It's massive, right? If not more than 60 feet actually, right? It's a massive place. What happened was, over the centuries, people continued to build walls and barriers between the original house of Aisha and the external grave, or the external people, excuse me. When Abdul Malik, Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik built the extension, the Tabi'un who were alive did not want the grave to be in the direction of the Qibla, because then you'd be facing the grave when you prostrate. So they built 3 walls around it, and then facing the Qibla they built 2 walls, i.e. a pentagon totally. And the 2 walls were not in the middle mixing, they went a little bit astray, so that anybody facing it was facing a slanted wall basically. So psychologically they're not facing the grave. This was built in the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, right? And this was the time as well that when they were building the wall, one of the walls of Aisha's house collapsed, which shows you, of course, it's a human structure, it's not going to last forever, right? And they saw 2 exposed feet, and everybody panicked. They were completely undecomposed, completely fresh. Everybody panicked because they felt this might be the feet of the Prophet ﷺ, and they called the elders of the community and they figured out, no, this is not him, this is Abu Umar ibn al-Khattab. So the wall that was Umar's side fell down, right? So they covered that up with sand, and then they built, as I said, the pentagonal structure. This is in Walid ibn Abdul Malik. Then over the course of the next centuries, the pentagonal structure was then another large room, and then another room, and then an octagonal structure roughly in this 5th century. And then the Ottomans built a grail, a large grail, a massive grail. And then the Saudis came and they put a curtain, and then they built another grail around the curtain. And therefore, if you actually look in, you will firstly not see anything other than what your imagination tells you are seeing, right? But secondly, if you could actually flash, and I have lived there for 10 years, so I know this, I have been there plenty of times, I have seen. If you were actually could see inside, all you would see is a green covering, a cloth, that is covering another grail. There are in fact 2 grails, both built by the Ottomans basically. One of them is an inner, older Ottomans, and others an outer Ottoman. And the Saudis have basically let that stand. And the green dome on top was built by, subhanAllah, the name is in the tip of my tongue, Qalawun. Qalawun, who was the Mamluk Sultan of Egypt in 672 or so Hijrah, right? Around 672 or so, Nasir ibn Qalawun. He was the one who built the green dome. Ironically, the dome was not green when it was built. The dome has gone through at least half a dozen colors, from white to yellow to black to green. Was actually pretty recent in the grand scale of things. I think only 200 years or so ago. Right? And so the dome was not green, originally it was white. But the dome was added on pretty recently in the grand scale of things, i.e. 600 years ago, not 1,000 years ago. So the point being that in our times, there is even in our books of history, it says that one of the sultans, and that is Nuruddin al-Zangi. Nuruddin al-Zangi, he actually built a moat of iron, around, lead, around the grave by a distance, because, and again these are stories, Allahu A'lam, because it is said that 2 people, non-Muslims, tried to steal the body of the Prophet by digging a grave there. So he built this moat around it, and he then fortified it again. So Nuruddin was one of those who built yet another fortified wall. So in our times, one of my teachers tells me that he has been inside, not the grave, but there is still a number of structures you can go inside. You can go inside 2 or 3 structures basically, and they go back maybe 600 years, right? So he has been inside, and he tells me that in fact you have to go down at least 20 feet, which actually makes complete sense for those who know geography and geology, right? Lands go up and down. And so the actual house of the Prophet ﷺ is probably not even in the level that we think it is. It's actually down, right? And throughout all of these centuries, we've just built on top, on top, on top. Allahu A'lam. This is what he told me, that he had to go down staircases and go into, and then they stop. At a certain point, they stop, and they're not allowed to go beyond this point. Wallahu A'lam.